The galaxy had always been a place of chaos and war, with different races vying for power and control. Among them, the Draconian Empire was the most feared. Known for their advanced technology, powerful fleets, and ruthless tactics, they had swept through countless civilizations, leaving destruction in their wake. No one dared challenge them, for the Draconians had never been defeated. For years, rumors spread about their next target, Earth. But many believed it was just that, rumors. Earth was a small, distant planet with no significant military power or advanced technology. The galaxy's leaders dismissed Earth as a threat, considering it unimportant. They had bigger problems to deal with, such as the ever-growing Draconian Empire. But those who truly knew the galaxy's history understood one thing: the Draconians were always hungry for more. The first sign of trouble came in the form of a massive fleet. Draconian warships, enormous and sleek, appeared in the skies above Earth. Their ships were unlike anything humans had ever seen: giant, dark, and menacing. The fleet stretched across the sky like a dark cloud, blocking out the sun and casting shadows over every city. People on Earth gazed up in horror, not knowing what to expect next. General Xarak, the ruthless leader of the Draconian fleet, broadcasted a chilling message across the world. "Earth, you are now under the control of the Draconian Empire," he declared in a cold, calculated voice. "Surrender immediately, or face the consequences." The world watched in shock. Earth's governments scrambled to respond. Their military forces were no match for the advanced Draconian technology. The best Earth had were outdated fighter jets and aging warships, and even those could barely hold their own against the Draconians' superior weaponry. Despite the overwhelming odds, Earth did not immediately surrender. There was something about the spirit of humanity that could not be easily crushed. Captain Laura Holt, a young and determined leader in the Earth Defense Force, stood before the world's leaders, making a bold statement. "We may be outmatched, but we will not go down without a fight," she said, her voice steady and resolute. "We will defend our planet with everything we have." As the Draconian ships hovered above, the people of Earth began to prepare. The military launched their most advanced jets into the sky, ready to engage the Draconian fleet. But deep down, everyone knew it was a losing battle. The Draconians had weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. What could Earth possibly do to stop them? It wasn't long before the first battle began. The Draconian ships unleashed their weapons, massive beams of energy that tore through Earth's defenses. Cities were reduced to rubble in an instant. The world watched in horror as the once great human cities were wiped out in a matter of hours. Despite their best efforts, the Earth's military could do little to stop the onslaught. Every fighter jet sent into the air was destroyed. Every missile launched was intercepted before it could reach its target. And yet, Earth's people did not give up. They fought back with everything they had. The human spirit, strong, determined, and never willing to surrender, rose up against the invaders. The world came together in a way it never had before, with people of all nations joining the fight to protect their homes and families. But it soon became clear that the Draconians were not just here to conquer. They were here to wipe Earth off the map. Their weapons were devastating, and their forces seemed endless. They could have easily crushed humanity, but something strange began to happen. As the Draconian ships began their bombardment, something began to interfere with their technology. At first, it was subtle. A few weapons misfired. Some ships couldn't fire their weapons at all. The Draconian fleet, known for its precision and efficiency, started to show signs of confusion. Communication lines crackled with static. Their ships moved in erratic patterns, as if they were no longer under the control of their commanders. Captain Holt, watching from the Earth Defense Headquarters, couldn't believe her eyes. Was this some kind of trick? Had the Draconians made a mistake? But as more and more of their ships malfunctioned, a sense of hope began to grow among the human forces. Was it possible that the Draconians, the mighty conquerors of the galaxy, were struggling against something they didn't understand? For a brief moment, The Earth Defense Forces had a glimmer of hope, but they couldn't afford to be distracted. The Draconian fleet was still massive, and even with their technology malfunctioning, they were still a deadly force. But as the hours passed, the strange disruptions in their ship's operations began to grow more intense. Something was happening, something that no one on Earth could explain. The battle had only just begun, but the tide of war was already shifting in ways no one had expected. The battle above Earth raged on. The Draconian fleet, though suffering from strange malfunctions, continued its relentless assault on the planet. Earth's military forces, despite their best efforts, were still struggling to mount any meaningful defense. Cities fell one by one, and the damage seemed irreversible. But in the midst of all this destruction, something unusual was happening that no one could explain. The Draconian warships, their weapons misfiring and their engines sputtering, started to behave strangely. It wasn't just a few ships malfunctioning. It was the entire fleet. One by one, they stopped firing their weapons and moved off course, as though they were being controlled by an invisible force. Communication lines, once clear and precise, became filled with static, and the once strong military might of the Draconian empires seemed to be crumbling right before the eyes of Earth's defenders. As Captain Lara Holt stood in the Earth Defense Command Center, watching the situation unfold on a large monitor, she could hardly believe what she was seeing. Her heart pounded as she observed the Draconian fleet slowing down and faltering in midair. The ships weren't retreating. They were lost. The once proud, unstoppable invaders had turned into nothing more than confused wanderers in the sky. "Captain Holt, we're detecting something," said one of the analysts from the control room. He sounded uncertain, almost unsure of his own words. "There's a strange energy field surrounding the fleet. It's interfering with their systems." Lara's eyes narrowed as she focused on the screen. There it was, a strange, flickering light enveloping the Draconian ships. It wasn't like any weapon Earth had ever seen. This wasn't an attack, but something different. Something that seemed to be working against the Draconians, disabling their ships without even firing a shot. "What is that?" Lara whispered to herself, more out of disbelief than anything else. The Draconians had always been invincible in the eyes of the galaxy. How could something like this happen to them? But the situation was far from under control. The Draconian fleet, though malfunctioning, was still an overwhelming force. Their warships were massive, their weapons capable of destroying entire cities with a single blast. The damage done to Earth was already catastrophic, and Captain Holt knew that time was running out. Even if the fleet was struggling, the threat was still there. "We need to take advantage of this moment," Lara said, her voice filled with determination. "We can't let them recover. Prepare for an all-out counterattack." The Earth Defense Forces quickly mobilized, sending their remaining forces into the air. Jets and fighter craft, barely able to hold their own against the advanced Draconian ships, now had a chance to strike back. For the first time in hours, Earth's military forces were able to land some hits on the Draconian ships, forcing a few of them to retreat. But the question remained, what was causing all this? Why were the Draconians so vulnerable now? And more importantly, who or what was responsible for this sudden change? As the hours passed, the situation grew even stranger. More and more Draconian ships began to malfunction. Their weapons misfired in every direction, causing the fleet to turn on itself. Some ships even collided with one another, unable to correct their course. The Draconians, who had once been the ultimate force in the galaxy, were now completely out of control. In the heart of the Draconian fleet, General Xarek stood in his command ship, watching the chaos unfold. His once imposing figure, always confident and ruthless, now seemed uncertain. His eyes darted across the monitor, trying to understand what was happening to his fleet. "Report." Xarek barked, his voice sharp and filled with panic. "Sir, we..." The officer hesitated, his hands shaking as he tried to make sense of the readings. "We can't explain it. Something is interfering with our technology. Our systems are failing. It's like we're being pulled off course. Sarek's eyes narrowed in disbelief. This is impossible. No one has the power to stop us. But as much as he tried to convince himself otherwise, the truth was clear. Something was happening to his fleet that he could not control. The Draconians had never faced an enemy like this, and they had no way of knowing what to do. Their superior technology, their vast numbers, and their sheer force meant nothing in the face of this unknown power. Back on Earth, the mood was shifting. As the Draconian fleet faltered, people began to feel a flicker of hope. For the first time, Earth wasn't helpless. Despite the destruction that had already occurred, despite the overwhelming odds, there was a chance, a small but real chance, that humanity could survive. But Captain Holt knew the battle was far from over. She had no idea what was happening to the Draconians, but she knew one thing for certain. Earth needed to be ready for anything. Whatever force was disrupting the Draconians wasn't finished yet. And as long as that fleet remained in Earth's skies, the battle was far from won. "We keep fighting," Lara muttered under her breath. "We don't stop until this is over." The strange energy field continued to surround the Draconian ships, keeping them in check, but no one knew how long it would last. Would the Draconians recover? Could they regain control of their fleet? And what about the mysterious force that had intervened on Earth's behalf? The galaxy's most powerful empire was faltering, and no one knew why. Earth was now facing an uncertain future, one filled with questions and mysteries no one could explain. As the days passed, Earth's defenders began to notice something even more unusual. The strange energy field surrounding the Draconian fleet hadn't dissipated. In fact, it seemed to be growing stronger. The once powerful warships of the Draconian Empire continued to malfunction, their systems failing one after another. No one had been able to figure out what was causing this disruption, but the effects were undeniable. The Earth Defense Force continued to press their advantage, launching targeted strikes against the weakened fleet. The Draconian warships, no longer able to defend themselves properly, were slowly being pushed back. But as the humans gained ground, an unsettling question lingered in the air. Who or what was behind the Draconian fleet's sudden vulnerability? Captain Lara Holt stood on the command deck, her eyes fixed on the screens in front of her. The battle had become a strange kind of stalemate. The Draconians were still in the sky, but their ships were barely functioning. The Earth Defense Force was winning, but the mystery remained unsolved. Lara couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was at play, something that might be even more dangerous than the Draconians themselves. "Captain Holt, we're receiving a message from the Federation," one of the analysts called out, snapping Lara out of her thoughts. Lara turned to face the screen, where the face of an old friend appeared. It was Commander Alex Way, a top strategist from the Federation of Allied Worlds. He was a familiar face, someone she trusted, but his expression was grim. "Lara, I need you to listen carefully," Commander Way began. "We've been tracking the Draconian fleet for days. What you're seeing isn't just a malfunction. It's a deliberate interference. Something or someone is actively disrupting their ships. We've never seen anything like this before." Lara's heart skipped a beat. "Who's doing this? Can we stop it?" "We're not sure yet," Way replied, his voice tight with concern. "But we believe that this interference is coming from somewhere close, closer than you think. It's as if something on Earth itself is controlling their systems." Lara's brow furrowed. "You're saying Earth is somehow involved in this?" "I know it sounds impossible," Way said, "but all signs point to Earth. We're currently working on a plan to trace the source of the interference. I'll send more details soon. Until then, keep your guard up." Before Lara could respond, the transmission ended. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the information. A sense of unease settled over the command center. If Earth was somehow behind this strange phenomenon, what did that mean? And more importantly, who or what had the power to control the Draconian fleet without even firing a shot? "Captain, I think we should investigate the source of the interference," one of the officers suggested. If Earth is involved in this, we need to understand how. Lara nodded, her mind racing. Agreed. We'll send a team to gather more information. But we'll have to be careful. We don't know who or what we're dealing with. Meanwhile, General Tarak, still struggling to regain control of his fleet, was growing more desperate. His ships had been in disarray for days now, and he was beginning to wonder if they would ever be able to regain their strength. His command ship had been forced to retreat to a distant corner of Earth's atmosphere, far from the battle. His officers had been working around the clock, trying to figure out what was causing the interference, but every attempt to fix the problem had failed. Zarek paced back and forth in his command room, trying to think of a solution. The Draconian Empire had never encountered anything like this before. They were a race known for their power, their ability to crush any opposition. And yet here they were, being reduced to a broken, confused fleet by something they couldn't even comprehend. We need to find the source of this interference, Zarek growled, his fists clenched in frustration. We cannot allow Earth to defeat us so easily. But despite his anger, Zarek knew there was nothing he could do. His fleet was vulnerable, and his forces were scattered. He needed time, but time was something the Draconians no longer had. Back on Earth, Lara and her team set out to investigate the mysterious energy field. They gathered their best scientists and engineers, working around the clock to find any trace of the source. They discovered that the interference wasn't coming from any of Earth's known weapons or technology. There were no signs of an advanced human weapon capable of disrupting the Draconian fleet on such a scale. But the more they dug, the more they realized that the interference was coming from deep within Earth's atmosphere, from a location no one had ever suspected. The readings were faint, but there was definitely something there. We need to send a team to the coordinates, Lara instructed. If we can find the source of this, maybe we can understand how to stop it. The search for the source of the energy field began, and Lara couldn't help but feel a growing sense of urgency. Earth had come so far in this fight, but the questions were mounting. Who or what had the power to bring down the Draconians, and what did it mean for humanity's future? As the investigation continued, the answer seemed to be just out of reach, like a shadow lurking in the distance, waiting to reveal itself. The search for the source of the mysterious energy field continued to consume the Earth Defense Force's efforts. Captain Lara Holt and her team were on edge as they analyzed the data, trying to uncover any clue that might explain the Draconian fleet's sudden vulnerability. The readings they had discovered were puzzling. The interference wasn't coming from any known source. It seemed to be coming from within Earth's atmosphere, but no one could pinpoint exactly where or why. Lara paced in the command center, her mind racing. There had to be an explanation. Earth was not equipped with weapons capable of disrupting the Draconians on such a scale. Their technology was far beyond anything humanity had ever encountered. Yet something was clearly happening, something beyond their understanding. We need to find out what's causing this, Lara muttered, more to herself than anyone else. The Draconians are weak, but we can't let our guard down. Not yet. Her thoughts were interrupted by a call from Commander Wei. His face appeared on the screen, looking more worried than usual. Lara, we've discovered something, Wei said, his voice tinged with uncertainty. We've been running simulations, and it appears that the interference is not a weapon. It's an ancient force, something that might have been here long before humanity even existed. Lara's eyes widened. An ancient force? What do you mean? We don't have all the details yet, but our scientists believe this could be linked to something that's been buried deep within Earth's history, Wei explained. It's possible that the Draconians unknowingly triggered something when they attacked. This force, whatever it is, has been dormant for thousands of years, and now it's awake. Lara stood silent for a moment, trying to process the information. If what Wei was saying was true, this was unlike anything they had ever faced. An ancient force hidden on Earth could change everything. If it was powerful enough to disrupt the Draconian fleet, It might also have the power to reshape the balance of the galaxy. We need to find it, Lara said, her voice firm. We can't risk the Draconians discovering it before we do. The investigation took a new turn. The Earth Defense Force, along with the Federation of Allied Worlds, started analyzing Earth's ancient sites, searching for any clues that could explain the source of the interference. Lara, determined to find answers, led a team to a remote location in the mountains where strange energy readings had been detected. The team set out, navigating the rocky terrain in search of whatever lay hidden beneath the surface. As they journeyed deeper into the mountains, Lara couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. The landscape was breathtaking, but the tension in the air was thick. Whatever they were about to uncover could change everything. Earth's survival depended on finding this source before the Draconians did. Hours passed as they made their way to the coordinates. Finally, they arrived at a hidden cave, its entrance concealed by thick vines and rocks. The readings were stronger now, and Lara could feel the energy pulsing in the air. "Are we sure this is the place?" one of the officers asked, glancing around nervously. Lara nodded. "It's the only lead we have. Stay alert." They entered the cave, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The air inside was cool, and the walls seemed to pulse with an odd, otherworldly energy. As they moved deeper, the path opened into a large chamber. At the center of the room stood an ancient structure, an altar covered in strange symbols that no one could decipher. "What is this?" Lara whispered, her voice filled with awe. "This wasn't here before. This must be what's causing the energy field." The symbols on the altar seemed to glow faintly, as if reacting to their presence. As Lara approached, a strange sensation washed over her, a feeling of connection, as though something ancient and powerful was awakening in response to her touch. She hesitated for a moment before reaching out to touch the altar. The moment her fingers made contact with the cold stone, the ground beneath her feet rumbled. A low hum filled the air, and the symbols on the altar flared to life, casting a bright, glowing light throughout the chamber. Lara stepped back, startled, as the energy pulsed around them. "Captain, what's happening?" one of the officers shouted, his voice filled with panic. Lara could barely comprehend what she was seeing. The altar was not just an object. It was a conduit, a channel for an immense power that had been dormant for millennia. The Draconian fleet's malfunctioning was no coincidence. They had unwittingly triggered the awakening of this ancient force. Before Lara could react, a voice echoed in the chamber, low and resonant, as if it came from deep within the earth itself. "You have awakened me," the voice said, sending chills down Lara's spine. "And now I will show you the true power of Earth." The words sent a wave of unease through Lara and her team. What had they awakened? And what did this power mean for Earth's future? The voice seemed to echo in her mind, and for the first time, Lara felt a deep connection to something greater than herself. This force, whatever it was, had been lying in wait for a purpose, and now it had been set in motion. As the light from the altar began to intensify, Lara realized that the battle for Earth was far from over. The Draconians weren't the only threat they had to face. This ancient power was a force to be reckoned with, and its intentions were still a mystery. But one thing was certain: Earth had a new ally, and it was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered before. Lara stood in the heart of the ancient chamber, her fingers still resting on the glowing altar. The voice that had spoken to her was like a whisper in the back of her mind, and yet it felt as if it were all around her. It wasn't just a voice, it was a presence. Something old, something powerful, something that had been lying dormant for centuries. The hum of energy filled the air, vibrating deep within the walls of the cave. "We need to leave now," one of her officers said, his voice filled with panic. Lara shook her head, her eyes still fixed on the altar. "No, this is bigger than us. We have to understand what's happening here. We have to know who, or what, spoke to us." The officers exchanged uneasy glances but followed her lead. The chamber seemed to pulse with a strange energy, the air heavy with a sense of impending change. It was as if the entire world was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Lara stepped away from the altar, but the glow didn't fade. In fact, it grew brighter, and the symbols on the altar began to shift, rearranging themselves into patterns that were even more cryptic than before. The air around them seemed to crackle with static, and Lara could feel the ground beneath her feet vibrating as if the entire planet was reacting to what they had awakened. "Captain, look," one of the officers called, pointing toward the entrance of the cave. Lara turned to see a strange light glowing at the mouth of the cave, shining through the thick foliage that had concealed the entrance. It wasn't sunlight. This was something different, something unnatural. The light grew brighter and began to pulse, almost as if it were alive. "What is that?" Lara asked, her voice tense with worry. Before anyone could respond, the ground shook violently, knocking everyone off their feet. The rumble felt like an earthquake, but it was different, more focused, more powerful. It felt as though the very earth was reacting to the presence in the cave. "We need to get out of here," Lara said, scrambling to her feet. Now, the team quickly gathered their equipment and headed for the exit, but the cave was no longer the same. The walls had started to shift, moving in strange patterns as if they were alive. The air was thick with an oppressive energy, making it difficult to breathe. Lara's heart raced, and she could feel the panic rising within her. Something was happening, something they couldn't control. As they neared the entrance, the light outside became blinding. It wasn't just coming from the cave, it was coming from the ground itself. The earth had begun to glow, and the sky above was darkening, casting an eerie shadow over the landscape. "What's going on?" one of the officers asked, his voice barely audible over the roar of the strange energy filling the air. Lara didn't have an answer. She had no idea what they had uncovered, but she knew one thing. They had unleashed something that could change the course of human history. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet split open, revealing a massive underground structure. The earth trembled as the entrance to an ancient city was exposed. The walls of the city were covered in the same symbols that had appeared on the altar, and Lara realized with a sinking feeling that this was no mere relic. This was something much more significant, something that had been hidden for a reason. The light from the structure grew even more intense, and Lara could feel it tugging at her consciousness. The voice from the altar whispered again, now louder, more insistent. "You have awakened me. You have awakened all of us." The words echoed in her mind, sending a chill through her spine. What did it mean? Who, or what, was all of us? Before she could ponder further, the sky above exploded in a flash of light. A ship, unlike anything they had seen before, appeared overhead. Its shape was sleek, alien in design, with an aura of power that made even the Draconian ships seem insignificant in comparison. It was as if the very ship itself radiated an energy that could bend the fabric of space. Lara's team looked up in awe and fear. The ship hovered above them, and a voice boomed from it, amplified by some unknown technology. "Earth has been chosen. Your world will be the stage for the rise of a new empire." The words sent a shiver down Lara's spine. Who were these beings? What had they awakened? And why had Earth been chosen? Before she could answer, the ship descended rapidly toward the Earth, its engines sending waves of energy through the atmosphere. Lara's team instinctively stepped back, knowing that they had no way of defending themselves against such a force. The ship landed with a resounding thud, and a door opened on its side. Figures in dark, ornate armor stepped out, their movements graceful and deliberate. They were humanoid but radiated an aura of authority and power. Lara's heart raced. She had never felt such a presence before. These beings weren't just from another world. They were from a time long before humanity even existed. They were the ones who had left Earth with a warning, a message that had been buried in the ancient ruins. The beings raised their hands, and a beam of light shot from the ship, enveloping the area in a soft, glowing mist. Lara and her team stood frozen in place, unsure of what to do next. And then the voice spoke again, louder and more clear than before. "The future is now. You have awakened us, and now Earth will rise." Lara's mind raced with 1,000 questions. The Draconians had no idea what they had just unleashed. And now, the galaxy itself would have to reckon with the true power of Earth. Lara stood frozen, staring at the beings who had descended from the ship. They were unlike anything she had ever seen before, tall, with dark, ornate armor covering their bodies, and a presence that seemed to bend the very air around them. Their eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, and every movement they made radiated power. The air around them seemed to hum with energy, and Lara felt a strange sense of awe and fear. She could feel the ground beneath her feet vibrating slightly, as if the ship itself was connected to the planet in a way she couldn't comprehend. The voice, amplified by some unknown technology, echoed in her mind again. "Earth has been chosen. The time for your rise has come." Lara didn't know what to say. Her team stood behind her, equally stunned and unsure of how to react. No one had expected anything like this. They had come to investigate an ancient cave, and now they were standing in front of beings who seemed to have the power to reshape the course of history. The beings began to speak, their voices deep and resonant. The words weren't in any language Lara recognized, but somehow she understood their meaning. They were speaking to them, but not with words. Through their presence, their intent. They wanted to communicate something important. "We've been waiting for you," Lara said softly, though she didn't fully understand why those words came out of her mouth. It was as though some part of her had been drawn into this moment, this encounter, even though she wasn't fully aware of what was happening. The being closest to her stepped forward, its gaze locking with hers. It raised a hand, and for a moment, Lara felt a sudden flood of visions, images of ancient times, of planets being born, civilizations rising and falling, and of a cosmic struggle that spanned across galaxies. She saw Earth in its earliest days, long before humans had ever walked upon it, and she saw the ruins of cities that had once thrived, now lost to time. Then, just as suddenly as the visions appeared, they vanished, leaving Lara breathless. You have been chosen to witness what is to come," the being said. Its voice was more than just sound. It was a sensation, a force that rippled through her body. She could feel its weight in her chest. The galaxy is about to change, and Earth is at the heart of it. Lara took a step back, her mind racing. This wasn't just a random event. This was something monumental. The beings standing before them weren't here by chance. They had come for a reason. They had come because they had seen something in Earth, in humanity, that had made them believe that this planet held the key to something greater. "What do you want from us?" Lara asked, her voice steady but filled with uncertainty. The being's gaze softened, just slightly, though its power still loomed over her. "We need your help. Your world holds the answer to an ancient question. It is a question that has echoed through the cosmos for eons. And now, only you, only humanity, can provide the answer." Lara's heart raced. She didn't understand. What could Earth possibly have that these beings needed? What could she, an ordinary human, do to help them? The being continued, its voice calm yet filled with unspoken urgency. "You are the bridge. You have the potential to unite the fragmented empires of the galaxy. To stop the destruction that looms in the distance, you have the power to bring together the forces of light and darkness." Lara was stunned. Unite the galaxy. Stop destruction. She had barely been able to unite her own team in the face of this unknown threat. What could she possibly do to stop something on that scale? "Why us?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. "Why Earth?" The being's eyes glowed brighter for a moment, and it stepped closer to her. "You have a gift that no other race in the galaxy possesses, a gift that can shape the future, but it must be awakened. It has been dormant for centuries, waiting for the right moment." Lara blinked, her mind struggling to grasp what was being said. A gift? What kind of gift? The being extended a hand toward her, palm open. A small orb of light appeared in the center of its hand. The orb pulsed with energy, glowing brighter and brighter, until it seemed to fill the space around them. The air grew heavy with power, and Lyra could feel it pressing against her chest. This gift, the being said, is your will. The will of your people. It is the force that drives the rise and fall of civilizations. It is what will determine the fate of the galaxy. And it is this power that you, humanity, will need to unlock in order to save all of us. Lyra felt a strange sensation rise within her. A warmth spread through her chest, and for a moment, she could feel the power that the being spoke of, as if it were flowing through her veins. It wasn't just energy. It was something deeper, something more connected to who she was as a human. It was a force of will, of determination, of hope. The being's gaze softened once more. We will help you, but you must decide quickly. Time is running out. Before Lyra could respond, the ground beneath them began to tremble again, and the sky overhead darkened. A great storm was coming, a storm that would change everything. The storm raged above them, clouds swirling ominously as the strange beings stood tall, their forms barely visible in the growing darkness. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest, the weight of their words pressing down on her. The air crackled with energy, and the ground seemed to tremble beneath her feet as if the earth itself was holding its breath. She could feel the pulse of the unseen power the being spoke of, but she had no idea what to do with it. Time is running out. The voice echoed in her mind again, more urgent now. You must choose. Will you unlock the power within you? Will you lead your people to save the galaxy? Lyra glanced at her team. They were as confused and frightened as she was, unsure of the right path forward. Everyone was waiting for her to make a decision. But how could she? She was just an archaeologist, a simple human. How could she, of all people, be expected to save the galaxy? The beings moved closer, their eyes glowing brighter. You don't have to do this alone, one of them said, its voice soft but filled with a quiet power. Your people are capable of great things when united. Together, you can face what is coming. Lyra closed her eyes for a moment, thinking back to the moments before all of this began. Her life had been simple. She had spent years uncovering the mysteries of ancient civilizations, never imagining she would be in the midst of something so monumental. And yet, here she was, standing in front of beings from another world, with the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance. She took a deep breath. What exactly do you want us to do? She asked, her voice steady despite the fear swirling within her. The being before her raised a hand, and in the blink of an eye, an image appeared in the air, a map of the galaxy, filled with stars and planets. The galaxy is divided, it explained. There are factions at war, old rivalries that have lasted for centuries. But there is a greater enemy lurking, one that threatens to destroy everything. Only through unity will the galaxy have a chance to survive. Lyra's mind raced as she tried to make sense of the information. So, you want us to bring the galaxy together? To stop this enemy? Yes, the being replied. But you must first understand the power that lies dormant within your people. Humanity has the potential to unite what is broken, to heal the divisions that have existed for millennia. Lyra felt a strange warmth surge through her once again, as if the power was awakening deep within her. She could feel the strength of the connection between her and the beings, between humanity and the galaxy. It was as if everything she had ever known, everything she had ever believed about humanity's place in the universe, was changing. She could feel the will to act, to protect, to stand up against the unknown. But how? Lyra whispered. How can we possibly unite the galaxy? You have already begun, the being said, its voice calm. You have already begun to see the truth. You do not need to do this alone. The people of Earth have the strength, the courage, the heart to bring others together. You must lead them, inspire them to awaken their power. Lyra felt a surge of confidence, an overwhelming sense that she could do this. The path ahead was uncertain, But she knew it was the only choice. The fate of not just Earth, but the entire galaxy rested on humanity's ability to rise to the challenge. And she would not let them fail. She turned to her team, her eyes meeting theirs. "We have to do this," she said firmly. "We have to fight for our future. For everyone's future." Her team nodded, their faces a mix of fear and determination. They had no choice but to follow her now. The beings had given them a glimpse of the power within them. And though it seemed impossible, they all knew what had to be done. The being stepped back, nodding in approval. "You are ready. The power you seek is within you. It is a power that lies in the hearts of your people. Unite them, and the galaxy will stand with you." As the storm above them began to subside, the sky cleared, revealing the stars once more. Lara felt a sense of peace wash over her, though the weight of the task ahead was still heavy. The journey would be long, and the challenges would be great, but she was no longer afraid. She knew what she had to do. The future of the galaxy rested on humanity's ability to unite, to awaken the power that lay within them, and Lara was ready to lead them, no matter the cost. The beings turned to leave, their forms vanishing into the night. But as they disappeared, their message lingered in the air. The future is yours to shape. The choice is yours. What will you do with this power? Lara stood tall, her heart filled with resolve. She knew that the path ahead would not be easy, but she also knew that humanity had the strength to overcome anything. She would unite Earth, and together, they would face whatever threats lay ahead. The galaxy had been warned, and humanity was ready to show them what they were capable of.